Welcome back to the new episode of Next Marketing with AJ, as in me. Today, I have the privilege to welcome one of the most reputed thought leaders and marketeers in the life sciences industry, Karima Sheikh, who is now the managing director at Initiative Health. She has played multiple leadership roles at other advertising holding companies in the past. I rate her as one of the most daring marketing professionals in the advertising industry. Today, we're going to talk about equity and equality with a context how equity and equality can contribute towards improving business outcomes. So if you are passionate about creating messaging campaigns which are powered by equity, I think this is the episode for you. On this episode, I would like to welcome Karima on the show. You want to just introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. I'm Karima Sharif, and I've been in the industry for, I want to say 23 years. So is that the Jordan? I'm in my Jordan year right now. I've always worked in healthcare marketing, focused on, media, marketing to healthcare professionals as well as patients, payers, the whole ecosystem around healthcare.
Excellent. No, love the experience. And I have thought I am the only one who has like all the healthcare experience who has not done anything else in life. But I think through this show, I'm meeting like so many great people with such diverse experiences.
Right.
Yeah. I think topic of today's episode is equity for equality. I think a topic a lot of agencies, brands, I see trying to do a lot of work in the area, whether it is in the marketing or it's in the clinical trial space, which is much needed. We want to kind of quickly describe like what it means to you.
No, I mean equity and equality. I mean they're core to what I do as a marketer, to ensure that we are thinking about the changing consumer and patient population. And when you think about that, if you look at the 2020 census, it was showing that we're already living in a diverse community within the United States. I think it's 40% or 2 out of 5 individuals already identify as being diverse, whether it's ethnicity or race. So just thinking about that as a basis for us as marketers is extremely important. Other industries are already thinking that way, whether it's CPG, whether it's, the finance institutions, because, thinking about that change in patient population or consumer population, we're getting even more diverse. And I believe by 2030, the next census will be a diverse majority. So would it be over 50% of the U.S. population that would be diverse, whether it's, ethnicity or race?
Wow, I think such alarming statistics, like such a huge population, right? And still, we don't see a lot happening for this population, right? Still, it is kind of considered like similar. Like, what do you think are the real reasons and what all can it really help in if we start looking at this audience as a cohort or separately?
It really should be looked at holistically as general marketing. In the past, we've always looked at it as like multicultural, or you might have had a segment around multiculture, whether you're looking at a specific race, like the African Americans or Blacks in the U.S. versus Hispanics. But we really have to stop thinking that way, because again, the future consumer is diverse, is different, and we need to make sure that we are not tied to old biased habits or old data that didn't even include some of these diverse populations to make our marketing decisions. Whereas now there are so there is a lot of data that's coming out, and cultural understanding around some of these markets and these consumers. So I think we have to continue to invest in that data, understand these diverse consumers and potential patients and caregivers, as well as what their health affinities are. So it does need to start with the data, and making sure that we're incorporating these reflections in the data, because in the past that was not done.
If we focus on healthcare professionals, which is such an important audience for the life sciences companies, does that data exist about the diversity indicators?
There is some data points. So from a healthcare professional standpoint, there is data on how many physicians are, from a diverse background. I believe, for instance, there are 6% Black or African American physicians within the United States. However, the US population is 13%. So there's not a real one-to-one in seeing a healthcare provider that looks like you if you're Black or African American, because they only account for about 6%. There is a disparity of like the makeup of a physician in relation to the US population.
What are the initiatives that you have seen various life sciences companies or agencies are doing, either in the HCP space or in the patient space?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And the work that I'm doing with some of our clients currently is moving us into more of an inclusive marketing framework or mindset across HCPs and the patient caregiver community. And it really starts with three specific areas. One is, how do we reach those communities? So whether it is physician associations that, like, there are associations that cater to like Black cardiologists or Black physicians or AAPI physicians or Hispanic physicians. So having a lens into those associations, just like we do any other professional association like the AMA or the or ASCO. It is key for us to think through how to reach physicians within those diverse communities and associations on the HCP side, because then they're also seeing some of those patients that look like them or resonate with them. The second part would be around culturally relevant, creative and content, especially at the point of care, or within outlets that we know our physicians are already going to, or our patients are already going to. So if they're going to social media or they're going to a specific website, how do we ensure that we're providing creative and content that's culturally relevant? And then the third one is a huge one, and that's around financial responsibility. How do we make sure that the dollars are going back to our diverse owned publishers and partners? I believe out of all of the marketing dollars that are out there, only 2% is going to diverse partners and publishers. And that's not okay. I know some of the industry is trying to push it to 5%, but if you really think about it, if we really want it to be equitable and bring that equality back to our pocketbooks and that financial responsibility, we will want to make sure that that spend is relative to the community. So for instance, if our focusing on African American women that are breast cancer, they're 30% more likely to die than a white woman. Like, how do we ensure that some of those partners that they are engaging with, we're spending our money there, and we're helping to communicate to that diverse community. Areas around reach what's the, relevancy, that cultural or the context, as well as the financial responsibility.
See, on the HCP side, as Doceree, right, we do a lot of hyper-targeted messaging, right, to physicians by understanding their behavior and a lot of other things about them, which they also don't know about themselves, right? I'd be very keen to kind of develop this as an additional targeting capability to reach these diverse audiences, right, and take it. Right? I think not part of this, but we could work separately in how to build that form of hyper targeting.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think that's why when we first started this conversation, I said, we have to start with the data, the inputs. We have to make sure that we're including some of these communities, whether they're the diverse, HCPs, or they're physicians that are seeing diverse, patients and caregivers. We have to start there. How do we do, market research to them? How do we understand their consumption habits? How do we understand what resonates for them? So absolutely, we could definitely think about hyper targeting, but we also need to make sure that it is grounded in that data and the insights of understanding those communities.
So I think if I go back like 10 years ago, right, I think not much was really happening. Now we see at least, I think, some pockets of activity for various things. How do you see this, right, going like maybe next 10 years from now? Where do you see this going?
I see us really expanding the habits of our marketing community, because we've already started to peel back the layers to have the conversations, one, but two, to really start to understand these different audiences. So I feel hopeful and positive that, in the next couple of years, we'll have rich insights on these different HCP communities and patient populations, and we'll also see partnerships kind of start to evolve around, again, the different professional associations, and the content that they would be, as well as some of the professional publishers too, of the content really evolve into, so that they're speaking to the physicians and educating the physicians just like they would educate them on the clinical aspects of a drug. But now more of these cultural, conversations, when you're seeing these different patients from different backgrounds.
Growth of technology and artificial intelligence, right? It's kind of much easier now to identify the audience in a digital space and create custom and personalized content for them.
Oh, absolutely. But then you also have to have those guardrails, because the technology, some of it is built off of biases. So again, we can have the technology to get us there, but we still need that human interaction or insights, so that we could make those differences in the culture, or in those levers, because we want to make sure that we're feeding the engines with the appropriate information, so that we can get to the right outcome. I think we're just at the starting point, especially when you bring all of these different cultural reflections into, content, into creative. It's amazing that we have the technology to do it, but we also want to make sure that we have that human layer, to help bring forth that cultural aspect.
You're championing such an important initiative, right? So who really inspires you? What keeps you going?
Oh gosh, that's a trick question. Let's see. I'm deeply rooted in my faith, so that is one anchor point for me. And then it's my family and friends, and as you mentioned, like, I'm always, on like LinkedIn, or just thinking about thought leadership. So I just get inspired by seeing, some innovations, or even just regular, wins that are happening, whether it's like legislation with like the Crown Act, or if there is, wins when we're talking about, equitable opportunities for some of the underserved or less fortunate, I that's what I kind of really go and consume a lot of content on, and I get inspired by that. Like whether it's in healthcare or not, like I just love seeing it across the globe as well. Like just great leaders or marketers that are leading the way for us, and just ensuring that we're having those conversations at the forefront around equality and equity for the human race.
What is one campaign or one brand that comes to your mind when you think about health equity? It's done a brilliant job in the space.
Oh wow. I've seen some really good campaigns, even from some of the clients I've worked where they know the consumer or the patient is. So for instance, a lot of, especially from diverse populations, they are going to social media before they go to Google. And so I see a lot of the marketers making sure that social media is part of their marketing plans and their frameworks, but then they're also tapping into influencer marketing. So ensuring that they're working with some of these content creators that can speak to the disease state, especially if they're sufferers themselves. Marketers going into the local communities, so they are, going into barbershops and beauty salons and churches, and some of those patient populations, that's a trusted, area for them, a trusted platform for them. So instead of trying to push them to, some other destination, they are listening and going into those communities and talking to those patients, those healthcare providers, and building those conversations around health equity, because that's communication is important. That's a part of being equitable, is ensuring that we have the health literacy in the hands of those patients. And that we're helping them with patient access, because 80% of health outcomes are really social economic factors. So a lot of times patients cannot afford their health care because they're worried about, travel, or they're working, they're single mothers. There's so many other dynamics other than the physician writing that prescription saying, take it. There's also, some cultural aspects to it as well. So I've seen a lot of clients start to play in those areas, which I think is amazing, because that's the only way we're going to affect change.
So the last question, what message do you have for the young marketeers?
Oh, I love that question. I think sometimes we go through our upbringing and society conforming to others and peers. And I would say, young marketers, be your authentic self. That's what brings the uniqueness. That's what brings your greatness to some of these conversations. And, being vocal about that is very important, because if those young marketers are seeing certain things that are happening in their community that's relevant to the boardroom, we want to make sure that those marketers feel safe to be their authentic selves and to advocate and be vocal about the changes within society, and within our own, marketing plans.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Karima, for joining the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Media has sometimes been separate to what might be deemed an omni-channel marketing ecosystem, and it's kind of this unpopular sibling on the side, not invited to the party right at the start of strategy and brand development. But what's happening now, increasingly, which is brilliant, is that media is becoming part of that conversation right at the start, and as a result, you get better outcomes.